For those of you doing the math, you know there are 5 members of my family. Can anyone venture a guess which one of us might not be the dancer? Who's got a guess here? Declan, who do you think is not? You don't think I'm the dancer? Have you seen Benjamin's moves? You think he gets those from his mother and not me? You are correct. I am not the dancer in the family. Thankfully, my children inherit that comfort and that skill from their mother. But I'll never forget our first date that Melissa and I went on. We had met while we were working at a church camp, and on one of the weekends that we had off, which was really like 24 hours, I had decided, I was invited to come down to the cities and hang out with Melissa's family, which I had met at a previous week at camp, so I wasn't too intimidated by that. We spent some time hanging out at the Washington County Arts and taking in the fair and all that, and then she said, let's go skating. And I thought, well, this would be fun. I don't mind skating around the rink. And so she took me to the depot in Minneapolis, right? So we went to the depot in Minneapolis, and we had the whole rink to ourselves. This is almost out of a Hallmark movie, right? Or a Christmas movie or something like that. And so we go to this rink, we pretty much have the whole place for ourselves, and she gets on the ice, and I was mesmerized. I had never seen something so beautiful in my life. To watch her skate around and to glide so smoothly and gracefully on the ice, it was something I've never seen before. Watching her jump so effortlessly and take off and land those quads. I mean, unbelievable. Okay, maybe it's not quads, because now there is one woman that's done a quad, right? I'm not going to pretend to remember her name from the Olympics, but it was a major accomplishment. Okay, maybe Melissa's not landing quads, but she might as well have been, because I was so mesmerized. It was just perfect, right? I've never seen such beauty of someone skating in person. Melissa grew up on the ice. In fact, to this day, her parents can still be found on the rink every single week enjoying their ice dancing. If you watch the Olympics, there's more interest and more craze in the ice dancing and these lifts and these perfectly in sync couples on the ice. And if you've ever watched a pair of dancers or ice dancers or ballet or ballroom dancing, then you might understand that the guy has one job, right? Well, okay, maybe 2 jobs. Don't drop her. That's probably job number 1. And the other job is really to show off his partner. In his book, Cherish, Gary Thomas uses the illustration of the ballet to help us understand what it means to cherish one another. He writes that the best male dancers recognize their role is all about showing the female dancer's beauty. And he says, he shares a quote from Bellashini, George Bellashini, a former dancer and choreographer of the ballet. He said his job was to make the beautiful more beautiful. In the same way, our job as husbands and wives is to make the beautiful more beautiful, Gary Thomas says, by supporting and stabilizing, by lifting and by turning our spouses to their best sides of their strengths and their personalities. Our spouses can become more beautiful and do more than they ever could on their own. We essentially, he says, affirm the beauty that we see in them by helping them become even more beautiful. Now, I love that line from George Bellashini, where it says to make the beautiful more beautiful, right? If you're here with your spouse, or if you want to text them, you can say, my job is to make the beautiful more beautiful. Now, some of you don't have your spouses here today, and I don't know what to say, but you want to bring out the best in someone, right? You want to bring out the best in your kids and your friends and your spouse. And it doesn't matter the relationship. The key to a healthy relationship, whether we're talking about a relationship with spouses, children, friends, is to add value to their life by cherishing them and bringing out their best, to make the beautiful more beautiful. The same is true in our relationships. Well, this month we are kicking off a message series here we call Cherish. And in our marriage vows, we promised to love and to cherish. And, well, I think we understand what that love part means, but what in the world does it mean to cherish our spouse? That's the part where we sometimes struggle with. Gary Thomas helps us understand what it means to cherish. He says, to cherish something means that we want to protect it. We want to honor it. We want to nurture it, indulge it, hold it dear, and showcase it. He says to truly cherish something, if you want to fill in the blanks on your message notes there, it says is to go out of our way to show it off, to protect it, and to honor it. We want to show it off, protect it, and honor it. The act of cherishing can bring life to a relationship. Relationship expert John Gottman observes just how important cherishing someone and honoring them is. Because he says, without honor, all the marriage skills that one can learn just won't work. You can have all the best skills there are, but if you don't know how to cherish and honor someone, it's not going to matter. You can be an excellent communicator, right? Have all the best skills, and when we cherish someone and honor someone, we go beyond simply listening to them or sharing space together. Cherishing someone and honoring them means that we will share the lows that they have with empathy, and we will celebrate their highs with enthusiasm. That we are going to share life together. Whether we're talking about a relationship with a spouse, a partner, our children, grandchildren, even a friend, to cherish someone is to bring out their best. Now, did you know that God cherishes you? Well, okay, of course, you probably knew that. You're here in church. And intellectually, we understand this kind of stuff. Like, oh yeah, God loves me. Right? God's got to love me. God loves everyone, so God loves even me. And I remember those little Bible songs and nursery rhymes, right? But just how intimately do we know this? How much do we actually think about that? Or when was the last time where we said, wow, like, I just experienced what it really means to be loved by God, to be loved unconditionally. Like, have you ever had one of those moments where you just had to stop in awe of the God who loves you? Like, oh, wow, God, I can't believe how incredibly good you are. It can be easy to miss. Some days we wonder if God even notices our existence. Some days we wonder if God has forgotten about us, or if God is picking on us, yet alone to realize just how much God loves us. That can be a challenge. But hear these words from Psalm 139. I'm not going to read the entire psalm, but I want you to hear the beauty of these words this morning. The psalmist writes, O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You know my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down. You are acquainted with all of my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before. You lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your presence, from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to the heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for darkness is as light to you. For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, that I know very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes beheld my unformed substance. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me, when none of them as yet existed. How weighty to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. I try to count them. They are more than the sand. They come to an end, and I am still with you. So on Wednesday nights, our K through 4th graders have been learning about this psalm. They've been learning about the sweetness of God's love for us. And I don't know if you've read that psalm before, or if it's maybe been a while since you hear those words, but it's this intimate picture of a God who knows us so well and yet loves us so deeply. We've been thinking about verse 14 as our memory verse, and I'm not going to play the song for you today because our kids kind of get a kick out of a really big, it kind of looks like a fake smile, but I'm not quite sure if it's a fake, cheesy smile or if it's just somebody who is so happy about this verse. But that key verse says, I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, that I know so full well. And as I've reflected on this psalm this year, recently it's come to light in a deeper way, a deeper understanding for me. You see, I ended 2022 with a slight sledding accident. Like, it wasn't those big hills, it wasn't a great big jump, it was just a really minor hill. And apparently, once you reach a certain age, rolling over backwards is not a good idea. So my body told me. I ended up taking a tumble, rolling over backwards, and suffered a herniated disc, a bulging disc, and a 2.3 centimeter caudal extension. Like, what in the world is a caudal extension? Basically, as I understand it, like, that's not really the scar tissue, but kind of the scar tissue of a sign of a traumatic injury, like blood and whatever stuff. And that decided to go traveling down along a key nerve to my left leg. My left foot is still numb, right? And so I suffered this injury, and I spent like a week after I finally had the symptoms that were so severe that I couldn't walk. Like, I was literally crawling around on my hands and knees to get around the house. Both doctors that I saw encouraged me to pursue the least invasive course of healing as possible, right? It's like I was in agony and excruciating pain, and the pain pills weren't working because they don't work with nerve pain. I could hardly move. But my doctor explained to me that with the course of treatments that I was on, that over 90% of these types of injuries can experience relief and heal themselves without requiring surgery. Now that's pretty amazing, because I know people, some of you might even be in this room here, that have had similar injuries and have gone through that surgery process and know exactly what that's like. And for my thinking, I'm like, well, if there's a chance that I don't necessarily have to do the surgery, then I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to try my best to rebuild some strength and start walking again and go through this and all that. When I asked about this 2.3 centimeter caudal extension, because like that was new to me, like I've heard of bulging disc and herniated disc, and like I can understand like that's supposed to go back into its place, but like, what happens with this, right? And basically the doctor explained to me, now this is my understanding, maybe not necessarily his words, but the immune system, our immune systems kind of, they know what's supposed to be there and what's not supposed to be there. Some of you are in the medical fields. You get this, right, Linda? And so our immune system says, hey, you don't belong here, and we're going to attack you until you get out of here. And so like your body, your immune system starts eating up the stuff that doesn't belong there. Which raises like all kinds of interesting questions to me, like how does my body know what's supposed to be there and not supposed to be there? How does my body know when to stop eating stuff and like not keep going and getting the other stuff, right? Like, it's so fascinating to me. And it was one of these moments when I had to stop and think like, God, you are amazing. Like, you've designed our human bodies in such a way that like we can heal ourselves. Okay, maybe we get some help and some relief along the way, but like when you think about that and stop and consider all that takes place in our human body, all that we can do, it's fascinating how God has designed us. How amazing it is that this can happen. Psalm 139 says, you know my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I am not an accident. I am not the product of some dust colliding or collecting. The Bible says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And the more the medical field and science study our bodies and the world that we live in, the more amazed we become with the God who designed it this way. But the point of this message isn't where we came or how we came to be, but that we have a God who knows us so intimately. A God who knows our inward parts and understands our bodies even than we can. Verse 1 says, "You have searched me and you know me. You know my every move, my every thought, all of my ways." Now wait a second. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I'm comfortable with God knowing my every thought. I don't know if I'm comfortable with God knowing my every way, because if God is watching me, He's going to know how many times I mess up. He's going to know about the times when I snap at the kids or when I snap at Melissa. He's going to know that I'm not perfect. And if God really is following me, then how can God possibly love me? But when God looks at you, He doesn't see the dust and the mud that we pick up along the journey. No, when He looks at you, He sees someone who has been washed clean through the love of His Son, through the gift of His Son. Instead, God looks at you through the gift of His Son, Jesus Christ. And He cherishes you because He chose you. He chose to love you. God chose to forgive you and to lift you out of the dust so that you can experience that love in a new, powerful way, so that you can experience a new life. We can cherish because we are cherished. Right? We can cherish others because we ourselves have been cherished. Christ lays the groundwork for our cherishing. Christ enables us to love in a way that otherwise would not be possible. The gift that Christ gives is the gift that we are able to give and pass along to others, because, let's be honest, we struggle with our love at times, don't we? I mean, you might even be thinking of somebody right now that is a challenge for you to love. Like, Pastor Gordon, you don't know how many times they leave the toilet seat up in the middle of the night. You don't know how many times I'm picking up after my kids. You don't know how many times that guy cuts me off in traffic, or you don't know what my boss is like. And there are some people in our lives that can challenge our abilities to love. Do you remember what it was like when you first fell in love? Think back to that moment. Or spend some time with a couple that just recently discovered their love for each other, or soon maybe your kids are going to be in the teenage dating phase. They're going to be infatuated with one another, right? Or they just can't stop smiling, they can't stop thinking about that person, like their whole world revolves around them. You get lost simply staring into each other's eyes. Your hands are all sweaty because you get nervous around them, or because they haven't stopped holding hands for like the entire movie, right? It's just kind of gross. It's like, right? Maybe you enjoy that kind of thing. Or we can go on and on and on, right? But there's a big difference between being infatuated and cherishing someone. Early on in a relationship, couples might become infatuated with each other. It's as if you can see no wrong, as if that person can do no wrong. They are absolutely perfect, aren't they? When you first met, and then they changed, right? The more time you spend with them, or once you exchange your wedding vows, or once the kids grow up, it's like, they kind of make messes, right? And life's not as perfect and as grand. And suddenly, you marry that person, and as soon as you marry that person, or you move in with that best friend, or you go on that long road trip together, suddenly they're not as nearly as perfect as you thought they were. And you begin to see them differently. Because the more intimate the relationship, the more you begin to see someone for who they really are. But to cherish someone means that we choose to love them. We choose to honor them. We choose to lift them up, even when we know their faults and their failures so well. Even when we know them so intimately. Gary Thomas says, infatuation has to die before authentic intimacy can begin. When I heard that line, I thought about, I think in my premarital counseling, or in my counseling days, I think I've actually had two couples that have sat down with me and said, we never fight. We've never had an argument, right? One couple never returned for their second appointment. So I guess that streak came to an end. And the other couple, I think, I know they're lying because one day they kidnapped me and I spent half a day driving around the country wondering, like, okay, how am I going to get out of this crisis situation, right? If we're honest, the person you're sitting next to today is not perfect, right? There is no perfect church. There is no perfect person. There is no perfect relationship. And Gary Thomas says that infatuation has to die before authentic intimacy can begin. But as we get to know one another, as we learn about each other, we can learn how to cherish one another. And that gives life to an old relationship, new hope, and better days. You see, cherishing is about knowing. It's about knowing someone. It's about knowing someone so fully and choosing to love them. Choosing to love them in spite of their own brokenness and in spite of your own brokenness. You know, our kids, sometimes we're disappointed in our kids, right? I'm not the only one who's ever been disappointed in their kids. Sometimes our kids might be noisy or whatever, or embarrass us. We've all had those moments where, like, I can't believe that just happened, but do we stop loving our kids just because we're disappointed? Do we stop loving our kids over a choice they made? Of course not, right? Cherishing is about knowing. It's knowing someone fully and choosing love always. It's a love that lifts up, it shows off, it puts their needs above our own. It's not an easy task, but it's so worth it, isn't it? Gary Thomas shares a story about a time when Leonard Bernstein, the famous orchestra conductor, was asked about the most difficult instrument to play. And he surprised everyone when he said that it was, anybody want to guess? Well, we got the quote here. The second violin. The most difficult instrument in the entire orchestra to play is the second violin. Because he said, if no one plays the second violin, we have no harmony. What a beautiful image. If we're all fighting over the first chair seat, if we're all playing the melody, then there is no harmony. Cherishing knows when it is time to play the second chair, to make the beautiful harmony that we desire. And when we do this, we lift the other person up. When we showcase them, when we honor them rather than tearing them down, we build them up. That's what it is to cherish. God cherishes you. We might not always feel it. We might not always see it. But when we are down, God's there with us, ready to lift us up. When we are rejoicing, God is rejoicing with us. God knows our struggle. God knows our triumphs. God weeps with us through the hard times. God carries us at times when we don't even realize it. God says, I love you. You are my child. You are precious to me. When we are down, God is there to lift us up, walking with us through those valleys. When we weep, God weeps with us. When we rejoice, Christ rejoices with us, because God delights in you. So we can cherish the dance.